So I wanted you to come today specifically, Amy, because so many people have been asking me about addiction.
Yes.
And I know tell me what you do so people know.
I'm a therapist.
Yes.
And I've spent many, many years in the field of addiction.
Okay.
Since I was trained in it from, I would say, 1998 on. And I've worked in several recovery centers.
Wow.
And I know a lot about it personally.
Yeah.
There's good family research.
Cathy has some experience in this too. She was a heroin addict. Just kidding. No,
it's true. Yeah, I did not know that about you.
That's why she's so.
I've recovered nicely.
No,
yeah. Most people just kind of, they get that
die.
Yeah, die, or they're preserved. Truly, with heroin addicts, they're preserved for a long amount of time, and they stop, and then they age rapidly. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Have you seen? I got gray hair. So
Okay,
it's
hold
happening.
on. Wait, what happens?
Well, it's like embalming fluid for the body. I mean, they're like preserved fabulously, and then they finally,
when they get
stop
clean?
using, they get clean. It's almost like somebody who has a gastric bypass and loses weight too fast and has excess skin. They just look like they're sucked up into their body. Like the aging process finally begins, is what it looks like.
But do they then fast forward to where they should be, or do they go past?
Oh, they look like they go past. They look like they've lived hard lives.
Well, they have.
Yeah, but it finally catches up with them.
So before we get too more,
Yes.
Cathy, tell me
Heroin
how
addicts,
you
go ahead.
have some experience besides your own heroin addiction, which is not true.
You look like you've weathered beautifully.
Thank you. I clearly am still using. Yeah. I was a social worker. I don't have as much addiction experience. I dealt with a lot of kids who were in the beginning stages of addiction and using and whatnot. And we did a lot of family therapy that had a lot of substance abuse in it. But I'm definitely not the expert.
Where was this? Was this
in Boston?
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you kept it on when you came here. I knew you were.
No, my license didn't transfer when I came here, and then I got
It's
pregnant.
Such a pain to try and get it all over again.
It's now a long time later. So, yeah.
Well, I've always had a bit of a fascination with addiction and with treatments of addiction because I have an uncle I was very close to who is now passed, who was terribly addicted to alcohol his whole life. 5-time DUI, ended up a felon. I got to take him to and from parole every month, which was awesome. God. But I was very close to him. I love him very much. He lived with us for a while when I was a child. We were driving around Atlanta, and my mother saw him underneath like an interstate underpass where he, I think, may have been using heroin or something a lot harder at that point. That was in the 70s. Right. And she took him home, and he lived with us for a while. I don't think he got sober, but I don't think he was using that. He was just drinking when he lived with us. He slept in the bottom bunk. I slept in the top. He was the sweetest guy. He used to call me Leonimus, and I just adored him. But he was terribly addicted. He ended up dying of brain cancer. He had schizophrenia. He was diagnosed with schizophrenic his 5th time in jail, when he actually had to spend a lot of time in jail because of his final felon DUI. And they transferred him to a mental institution to get him kind of stabilized. Now, I was told by my mom that he had drug-induced or drug-triggered schizophrenia. I don't know if that's an actual thing.
You can have that, drug-induced psychosis.
But that's what she told me. So that, and when I myself was young, I drank a lot. And I mean like a lot. So I had a DUI. I was in jail with my uncle at the same time. Yes, when I was 20.
Who took you guys to parole?
I know, right? I was
Uber then?
Well, I was 20, and I was massively drunk and driving, and got pulled over at 4 o'clock in the morning because that's what you do, stay out till 4. Completely hammered. We were going to see Mahalie Lancaster's grave. Now, Mahalie Lancaster was a witch, a local witch that had died. And her grave was in this really rural place, and it was always covered with lizards. And they would like replace the street light at this big graveyard, and it would never stay on. So it was like pitch black, and it's like steeped in all this mystery. And Mahalie, I had a personal connection because my grandfather lost his wallet once, and he went to Mahalie, and she told him where it was in this field where he was plowing, and he went and found it exactly where Mahalie said it was. So she was this real witch. Like, everybody knew her to be this witch. So we, of course, got completely hammered to go see Mahalie Lancaster's grave, and I got pulled over. And arrested, and when they took me back to put me in like the holding cell, my uncle was in the holding cell. I was like, hey, Terry, what's up? You and me, baby. They wouldn't let me stay in there with him because there were too many men. I had to sit with the female deputy in the office until my ex-boyfriend's drunk dad came and picked me up. He was also drunk. And they wouldn't let him have me because he showed up at jail drunk to pick up a drunk driver. So
they didn't call your parents?
My dad told me if I ever got arrested for jail, not to call him ever, for driving drunk, not to ever call him ever. He would not come and get me. And my mom, I think, was in Mexico. Okay. So the only thing I think of is my ex-boyfriend's dad and my dad were best friends in high school growing up. So and my ex-boyfriend was in the car with me. He was my ex at the time, but we were all going to see Mahalia Lancaster. So I was like, well, I'll just call Jeff's dad. I mean, I can't think of anybody else. I heard him actually.
Towns,
I heard him open the front door of the police office, and I heard him go, "Where's my goddamn girl? Where's my goddamn girl?" And I went, "Oh fuck, Don is totally drunk. He just picked me up, drunk." From
the drunk tank,
and where I'm with my drunk uncle. This is really maybe not the best place to be.
It's Mayberry on alcohol. Yeah.
So I was 20 when I was arrested for drunk driving and continued to drink.
Was it legal age 21 there?
21, and you couldn't drink on Sundays because Sundays are dry. So I would that was a Saturday night. So I was getting my shit done so that Saturday I was drunk half the day Sunday. But at that point I was drinking probably 6 days a week. I blacked out all the time. I got, I was just really out of control with drinking. And it escalated to the point where I had lost my hair from about my ears down in the back of my hair. Right. And it wouldn't grow back. It looked like alopecia, but it wasn't alopecia. So my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said her liver is enlarged. And something's going on. And she asked me if I was drinking. I was like, I don't ever drink. Never. Are you kidding me? With Uncle Terry, there's no way I would ever drink. Still drinking. Oh yeah, drinking and driving. One day I woke up in my bed with my clothes on, but no shoes, no coat, no purse. My bedroom window was open, and I realized I had crawled. I was living in Atlanta in college. I had parked my car, left my car door open, keys in the ignition. So I clearly couldn't find my keys to get in my front door. And I started undressing on the way to my window to get in my house and just drop my purse in the yard, drop my shit everywhere. I had driven home like that. I can't believe that I did that. None of these things woke me up. None of them did. But finally, I met this guy I've talked about before, this guy who's like a Reiki guy, and he was like, you got some issues with your mom. You got to get your shit cleaned up physically because I was having really bad headaches. And he was like, you need to love yourself. He really came to me with drinking with like, this is the opposite of loving yourself. So if you say you want love in your life, you have to start with yourself. And if you don't love yourself, then you can't accept love from anybody. So you got to fix this part. So I just like cold turkey stopped drinking for 7 years. I didn't drink anything. And I didn't really have any like no withdrawals. And my 21st birthday, I drank a fifth of Absolute by myself, all by myself that night.
That's a party.
So that's how much I was drinking. I wasn't
that's
like,
how you do it.
Let's just crack a beer. Right. No, I was drinking.
And nobody shall be around to interfere with my drinking because then the bottle will go down a little bit more than I was wanting.
No, I was social.
Oh, were you?
And I would share, but not on my 21st birthday. Okay. That was my bottle. I remember my boyfriend at the time giving it to me, and I just walked with it in the crook of my elbow.
Like a baby.
Like the whole night. Like this one's mine. And you can all fuck off because this one's mine. So I was definitely, maybe I was an addict, but I was definitely on my way there. Yeah. But since when I took that 7-year kind of sabbatical from drinking, I didn't drink a drop of anything. And I dived into therapy and reading self-help books and doing the work in the self-help books. Like if you're supposed to journal, I did it. If you're supposed to make a list, I did it. If you're supposed to meditate, I did it. If you're supposed to hike, I did it. And I think that the root of my problem was trauma. And I was drinking not to feel. So then my path out of that was to feel.
Right.
And then to be okay with that feeling. And then like 7 years later, someone offered me a drink and I was like, okay. And I had a drink, and how often do I drink, Cathy? We drink together and it's not often, and I don't ever get hammered. I don't have that same
Craving.
I don't even know that I craved the alcohol. I craved the oblivion.
Right.
I don't crave that oblivion at all anywhere in my life ever.
Well, you've excavated what brought you to that
I did.
desire to,
Big time.
squish,
But I'm curious because I think I may be an exception. I don't know that.
Well, there's hard drinkers. I mean, they talk about there being hard drinkers. It's not everybody's not an alcoholic. You can drink alcoholically and be a hard drinker, where you did it for a specific reason and it took care of you, and it was your Band-Aid for that amount of time. And when given sufficient reason to stop, they stop.
Oh, that sounds like
Leanne,
me.
you have a heart disease that if you continue drinking, it's going to kill you. You're like, well, that sounds like a really good reason to stop drinking. I think I'll do that.
Right.
And they stop, and it's unbelievable. But an alcoholic, given your family's leaving you, you've lost your house, like given every single reason not to stop, they can't do it.
Really?
Yeah. That's the difference between someone who's like a hard drinker and somebody who is labeled an alcoholic.
So I think I may be married to a hard drinker. Because every time we go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, his MD, his regular doctor, she always says, how's the drinking? How's it going? They monitor his liver, monitor his blood. Everything's healthy. Everything's
Right.
fine. He drinks a lot. But when he stops drinking, he really doesn't have... There's no shaking. There's no sweating. He has a little bit of a mood swing, but it's not like this intolerable... For the amount he drinks, you would think he'd be in the hospital. I would anyway. I'd be
Right.
like, okay, IV. This is bad. But maybe he's just a hard drinker. I've always wondered, I'm not diagnosing him, by the way, but I've always just kind of wondered how that works, right?
Well,
And-
conversely, there are alcoholics who stop drinking for limited periods of time, but they always go back to it.
Oh, well, that's him too. He doesn't stop drinking permanently.
They'll do it like, I can quit anytime. I quit for a month back in, November. And then they go back again. They're like, yeah, but so I showed you I did that, so I can keep going now. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was called Sober October.
Well, that's right. Which is an odd month to pick to be sober.
Well,
Given
yeah.
Germany,
Totally. That's why he did it.
Fest.
It's because it was the hardest one.
Yeah, that's right. That makes sense. So you put a lot of thought into that.
If I can do that on the hardest one, then I can do it.
do it
Not taking
anytime.
into account Thanksgiving and Christmas, which is pretty hard.
Right.
Or New Year's.
It's much harder with family around. Come on.
So anyway,
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
that story I just told is why I'm so interested in addiction, is because I went through all that, but I never have felt like an addict.
Yeah.
And those two things didn't add up to me. How could I be that way and then it just be gone? So you just explained it. That's amazing. That answered something for me. Like, I always have this fear, like maybe I do have this addictive gene, but I don't have that proof of that anywhere in my day. I'm not addicted to anything.
So it would come out in every other, Kathy, you know about this. It would come out in other areas of your life. It would come out in eating or shopping or smoking, or, there'd be other areas of your life where the addiction would be evident.
Okay,
Right?
so Bert's an
have
addict.
you seen that? So
Bert's definitely an addict, because have you seen his hats? Oh my God. There's so many hats. His shoes, yes. He just showed you. He bought 3 pair of
told me
Nikes today.
4.
And he bought 4? Oh my
maybe.
God. He showed them to me last night, and my head went, where am I putting those?
right.
He's like, do you like them? And my reaction was, where the fuck am I putting those? He's like, you don't like them. And I'm like, you don't know what I just said in my head.
Right.
Where the fuck am I putting those size 13 shoes?
Oh my God.
4 pairs?
of
Oh my
13.
God.
Yeah.
How's he going to wear them all, at the same time?
He
Like,
won't. He'll wear them once and never look at them again because he's an addict. I've now determined between hats, booze, and shoes, and knives, And yeah.
He has a bit of an addictive personality.
He's gone over collector status.
He's gone over collector status.
He's crossed the line.
He's gone all over that.
It may be into hoarder status.
So now, what
Which
made
is a whole nother diagnosis
Yes,
entirely.
right.
a hoarder status?
Oh,
He
yeah.
might.
OCD.
After the week I spent cleaning out my garage with my dad, yeah, he might be in hoarder status, maybe. Rapidly approaching. So why did both of you get into this line of work? Was it by accident? Was it on purpose? Was it, why?
No, it was definitely on purpose.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, I'm not sure the whole addiction piece was on purpose. I think that comes with the territory. Anytime you're dealing with any sort of mental health or
Right.
kids going through, or anyone going through trauma or whatnot, I think that's a very common component. I think a lot of people start out feeling the way you do, where they just don't want to feel whatever it is they're feeling. They can't cope. They don't know how. They don't have the skills or the tools. So I think that sort of just comes with the territory. But no, I mean, I personally definitely chose going into that field. Like, I knew from a very young age that's what I was going to do.
Social work?
Yeah. Or something along those lines. Like originally I wanted to be a vet, and then I went to watch surgery at my vet's office when I was a kid and fainted and realized that may not be the best profession for me.
Right. But you were
But
a kid,
knew I
though.
needed to, I was like 13 or 14.
Was it the
Okay.
blood? Like a vasovagal response?
There was something like, I don't know, I don't want to say anesthesia, but there was some smell that I could not tolerate in the operating room.
It was olfactory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oof. It's hard.
But I knew I wanted to help someone.
Right.
If it couldn't be animals, then I wanted to help kids. And then I started just working with kids from that point on, from the time I was 15. And I knew it was going to be something along those lines.
That's kind of incredible that you knew it that young. Most kids are so selfish that young. They're like, fuck all these kids.
Yeah.
I'm a kid.
You're a man for himself.
I know, right? So then you just
No.
kind of fell into the addiction piece as a sidebar
Correct.
to what your
yes,
intention
that was never
Okay.
my focus at all.
Right.
It just sort of comes with the territory, I think. I really believe they go hand in hand very often. So
Probably.
I don't know how you
and
started,
now,
but-
Amy, you started studying to be a therapist. Was it for
At
this
7.
At 7.
I'm not kidding.
At 7.
Not to try and top Cathy, which is a super addict thing to do. But that's all they do in rehab. It's like, oh yeah, I did 6 times.
Oh my God.
When I was 7, they put me in my first therapist's office because my parents were going through a divorce, and it was a little War of the Roses-ish.
Oh.
And I finally looked at my mother after like going to, I think it was like 3 therapists. I finally said to her, if one more fucking shrink tells me that this divorce is not my fault, I'm going to start thinking it is. Like,
Wow.
what's wrong with you people? Like, you realize you're hammering the same nail over and over again, and it's like gone past the threshold of the wood by now. Like, let it go, you know?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't believe me. And I had one that would do these like Rorschach tests, these ink tests.
Yeah.
Card after card, I'm like, I see a butterfly. I told them whatever I saw. And because I realized at a young age, I wasn't giving the answers that were producing the result that they wanted.
Yeah.
I finally told her that I saw like my dad stabbing my mother and
Oh
blood.
my God. Oh my God. Are you kidding?
No, and my mom pulled me out and she's like, are you really seeing that? I'm like, no, but if she shows me one more fucking ink blot, I'm going to scream. I mean, like, what do you want? What do you want from me?
What is the point of those ink blot things anyway?
Well, she was a psychoanalyst, and I don't believe in psychoanalysts.
What does that mean?
It's very neo-Freudian. And
Wait. All right. Clearly, I need more information than I actually have.
So
What is a psychoanalyst?
Psychoanalysts believe that you should be on the couch 3 to 5 times a week, and that
fuck
you're
that.
all the root of your problems is all deep seated in your past and your issues with your family, which is not so different than psychodynamic. Psychodynamic kind of takes the pieces of what your experience was growing up and tries to kind of place it in current time and looks at why certain things may have meaning to you. Mm-hmm. Psychoanalysis is much more like, when you are weaned from the breast of your mother, you weren't ready to stop. Like, I mean, and I can't.
No.
Freud was totally coked out. Some of his theories are great. No, he really was. He was using cocaine.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Oh my God. Yeah. And he was giving it to his daughter. Like, some of his theories were great and gave us nice forays into the field of therapy. Some of them were just half-cocked and bizarre, and he had all sorts of people who were with him, like Jung, who split from him.
Right.
Beck, who Beck wasn't with Freud because he came much later, but he was a psychodynamic therapist, and he went to he developed cognitive therapy because of it. He was so traumatized by it. And Jung actually wrote the foreword in the book for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually kind of linked together this ailment that these people had with the behavior that they continued to, be obsessed over for years and years. This obsession, he said it was like an obsession of the mind coupled with this compulsion, this physical compulsion to keep drinking over and over again.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, so psychodynamic was great. Psychoanalytic, which is what they put me in. I think most people, they go to the therapist and they don't know what, Cathy, what's your theoretical orientation? I mean, they don't know to ask. Like, we're not trained as laymen to ask, like, what's your background and how do you practice?
And we wouldn't even know what it means anyway.
Right.
Like, if you said, I'm Jungian,
did
I'd go,
when
good
I
for
started.
you.
Right.
You look great. You're young. I don't know what you're talking
about. If you're
about.
Jungian, you do like a lot of dream analysis. Like, who the hell would know that? Like, just
I wouldn't.
come into the
and
door
I don't
where
dream,
you flip the light.
so that'd be useless.
Right.
I don't have any
Maybe a bad
dreams.
therapist for you.
You'd be like, you do, you're just not aware of them.
Yeah, I'd say blank.
Right.
The screen
Yeah.
was blank.
Also, when you walk into those offices, psychoanalytic therapists are trained to not respond to you. So, like, awkward moment from the first time you meet them, you open the door and they don't say anything. And you're like,
That's
did I do something
bizarre.
wrong? So it literally like preys on people with high anxiety and neuroses, which is why they're perfect together. But I've never liked them. I really haven't, like a slant toward cognitive behavioral solution focus. Take what you have that you're dealing with right now, and whatever has peppered it in your past, pair it with that so you can explore it. But then, the past is past. You're here so you can learn to move forward.
Right.
And if there is something that you remember that you're kind of going, oh my God, I think this has to do with that. Great, we explore it, but you don't get stuck in it.
Right. I think that's the way my therapist is. I've never asked her. I've been with her forever.
Right. You wouldn't think to ask her. That's the funny thing.
No.
So I educate people as soon as they call me. I say, what are you looking for as far as a therapist? Because this is my theoretical orientation. This is how I work. So if you're wanting to like rehash everything from your past, that's not who I am.
Right.
And no, I'm not going to have you 4 or 5 times a week on my couch because I feel like that's taking an injured bird and breaking its bones over and over again.
And not healing it right.
Right. I want my people to leave and then come back for like a touchstone visit when they're going to college and they're trying to make a decision about should I stay home or should I go far, or getting married and they want 2 sessions about whether or not he's the right one or she's the right one. Nothing where they have to stay stuck.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Well, that also came from an experience of one of the therapists I went to where I tried to detach and they were like, oh no, I think you need more. And my parents wouldn't believe that I was like, I'm done.
Right.
So I was so resentful. I'm like, how dare you take somebody who's in a position that, you're in a position of power and you make them feel weak when they should feel like they're doing
Empowered.
better. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so you go to school, you decide you're going to do this type of therapy in school. And then how did you fall into the addiction piece?
So I felt like I'd covered therapy from 7 to 13. Like I was done. I didn't need to do it anymore. And I could probably do it like the back of my hand.
Right.
I went to school. Somewhere in there, I dropped out of school to pursue other interests.
Yes.
With you and your uncle. And then
It was a good time.
But we were in the same place. And then I came back to school and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to be.
Right.
And when I came back, I said to my friend Nicole, what are you going to do? And she goes, I think I'll try social work. I'm like, yeah, all right, me too.
Ah, interesting.
And so I found myself back in the field again. And I literally all my life from like elementary school all the way up until the second year of college before I left was C's, D's, B's, every report card going back to first grade. She has so much potential. Like her IQ's high. We don't understand what's wrong with her. Like
You were bored.
she's special.
Didn't care.
You were bored.
Didn't care. Well, I had a trauma. I had a trauma, but I also felt like I knew I didn't fit in. My brain I was emotionally intelligent. Mm-hmm. So I was picking up on every single nuance of people around me going, ooh, she doesn't like me. Ooh, he's looking at me funny. I must have done something wrong. Ooh, I was so hyper aware and hyper vigilant that I felt like everybody else had the book on how to do life and I didn't. So I was just tired all the time, and I just couldn't control all of you in the classroom and sit there and pay attention at the same time.
Right.
Like, it was just exhausting.
Yeah.
So finally, when I was doing my experimentation, it was like, oh, I don't give a crap about anybody. This is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and when I came out on the other side of it and started doing all that work, it came so easy to me to be able to read people
Right.
straight A's from the second year of college on.
No way.
Graduate school, dean's list, straight, not anything under an A.
That's amazing.
Except for statistics.
Oh, hell
Which
yeah.
doesn't count.
That was
No,
a C
either
plus,
way,
and I hated
will
it, and I
say.
wanted to kill my teacher.
I hate
but
that
other
too.
than that, every single class that had anything to do with psychology was a straight A, and I didn't even try.
That's amazing.
And graduate school after that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I guess this is what I should be doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's how you know, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's effortless.
And it's something that you like doing. And like
Right.
Cathy said, I loved helping people. I loved having people come in and feel better when they left than when they got there. You know, I mean, that's not always the case because you excavate stuff.
No, but
Right.
you see progress.
You see
like even if
progress.
it's not in that moment.
Right.
Like
Over time.
Yeah.
Same as Girl Scouts.
It is.
See progress. You go, oh, look at
And like
that.
Girl Scouts, and when I was working with foster kids,
Right.
and the energy that Girl Scouts have. No, when I was working with foster kids, sometimes just making the connection with them was like gold. I mean, you go home on cloud 9 because the kid trusted you. They tried something, it worked, and they were happy. And you were like, oh my God, thank you. It's like the best feeling in the world.
I had that kid in Mr. V's class in kindergarten. One kid who would not crack a smile all year. And toward the end of the year, she smiled and actually chuckled, and I was like, I got her. I got her. Oh my God, I got her. So I know exactly what you're talking about, although I didn't work in that field. That one kid, I was like, that's worth the whole year.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I got her to just, for one
They
second,
trusted
let her
that
guard
connection.
down.
Yeah.
Because she was not giving me anything but the big middle finger every day. And I was like, I am the funniest person in this room. I am so fun.
You
Why
can't even
can you
understand
not-
what he's saying half the time.
I
At least you
know,
can
right?
understand me.
He doesn't even speak English. Come on. Come on, give me something. And then she did. And I've had her ever since then.
Oh, I love
Ever
it.
since then, when I say something to her, she smiles and answers me. And I don't think she answers everybody. Do you know what kid I'm talking about?
I do. I remember. I don't.
I know.
Different year.
you missed
So-
the class. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, I wrote down a bunch of questions. Let me see if okay. I think we did talk about this. Is there a difference between a genetic addict and a trauma-triggered addict? Like, is there a difference? Well, not exactly, because you were talking about a heavy drinker versus someone who's genetically addicted, right?
But I truly believe, and check me on this, but I truly believe there's a genetic component. And I think, it's been proven, they've talked about it in medical journals. It doesn't mean everybody's going to be an addict who hails from an addict. And it's nature versus nurture, but it's kind of both. I feel like there's the predisposition for it, and then there's if it was triggered or not.
Right.
So if you already have a kid who feels like, I'm not understood in this world, they're primed.
Right.
They're just waiting for something to set them off.
Right.
And then given the opportunity, it hits them, they are more likely to become an addict because they already have the genetic predisposition for it. But they say it's like 50% of the offspring.
Yeah.
So it's
is
just
crazy.
It's crazy.
It
It's
is
a roll of the
crazy.
dice. It's like Huntington's chorea. Like that's the same, it's all, which is another awful disease that affects 50% of the offspring.
Well, we call it the hot singlet in this house.
The hot singlet.
You know what a singlet is? Singlet is a part of your brain, I guess. I went to this place, this neuro-linguistic institute, where they did like a scan of her brain and what's...
Like a functional MRI?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a part of your brain called the singlet, and it's the part that helps you like self-regulate.
Okay.
And part of a division of their work, they did one work with like kids and developing brains, and they had a whole nother division that just dealt with addicts. And they were like, everybody who has a hot singlet isn't necessarily an addict, but everybody who's an addict has a hot singlet.
Yeah.
And Isla has a hot singlet. And I was like, fuck, don't tell me Isla has a hot singlet. No, I'm gonna, the whole time she's in high school going, are you doing drugs? Are you doing drugs? I'm going to make your singlet even hotter.
Yeah.
Because I'm obsessed with, are you doing drugs because you are predisposed because you have a hot singlet. So did you know anything about the hot singlet?
I didn't know about the hot singlet. No. I know there's a guy, Dr. Amen at the Amen clinics, who does functional MRIs, and he addicts' brains light up like Christmas trees
Right.
when he does his MRIs. But he also shows, it's pretty amazing, he shows the capacity for the brain to heal itself once they stop,
Right.
which is amazing.
It is amazing. It's like your lungs, right? It can really heal.
Right.
Unless it gets to past a certain point, right? Once it's past a certain point, then it's kind of just mush, right?
Wet brain.
So do you approach treatment differently for someone who's just a straight genetic addict than someone who's a trauma but still genetic? I would imagine you have to, right?
I mean, not always, I don't think, actually.
No?
I think,
Kind of the
I mean,
same.
bottom line, you have to deal with the trauma. Like, if you can't address that, then you're never going to address
The addiction.
The addiction.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's hard. Somebody who's just genetically predisposed, like there's still some trigger that makes you start.
Right. And once
So-
they start,
Right.
they cause more triggers for themselves. Like as they go, like I like to call it, as they circle the drain down, right? As they're circling the drain, they create more drama and more angst and anxiety for themselves by doing things that they never thought they would do to get more. You know, sometimes girls go
Right.
down much faster than boys. They
Right.
find out they can use their body to get stuff. If they can't, you know.
Right. And
Did
then
people
it's
do that in your shelter?
Too.
a little bit. My kids were young. They were
Okay.
like,
That's
I mean, they were early, like late middle school, early high school. But yeah, they were definitely discovering that females have the ability to get things for free by doing certain things.
Yeah.
Like it's so sad.
I don't think I could work in that industry. I think it would break my heart.
really
It depends
hard.
to what. I mean, I had
But-
gangs at Napa State. I had gangs, and so
We were like suburban Boston, so
Okay.
we didn't really have a lot of gangs.
okay,
but-
because the gangs have a whole. If you want to
Yeah.
be jumped into a gang, it's gang rape.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
So my first,
wait a minute.
My first client at Napa State.
Wait.
Yeah.
The girl has to agree?
Correct.
Are you kidding me?
No. And my first client was a 12-year-old who was
What?
pregnant
Oh my God.
because she wanted to be in a gang, and her parents didn't understand why it was a bad thing that she joined a gang because gangs protect people, and that's why she was a ward of the state and seeing us. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, that's like if you don't have good family background, that's where nature and nurture both collide. And, you know, what they're getting in the way of resources is literally nil and void.
That's the worst thing I have heard in a long time.
Oh, that's not even the worst case.
What's the worst?
The worst case I had that made me stop working I was at LAUSC.
What's LAUSC?
Downtown
Oh,
County
county.
Hospital. Yeah.
Okay.
That was an 8-month-old with a torn labia. Yeah,
Ew.
that's what made me stop working there.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And they teach you in social work school. I mean, you remember this. What do they teach you about
Disgusting.
judging your client?
Wait,
Well, it's
yeah.
laughable, right?
Right. Yes.
I mean, you
You're
cannot
supposed to
judge-
be neutral.
neutral.
Like
to not judge the person who brought that baby
because
into
you
the
never
hospital.
know who's walking into your.
You don't know what
office.
their
So
pain
you
is.
have
You
to
don't know
be-
what. Right. So you're supposed to be neutral with the offenders. And this guy, and he, in all, like I tried so hard, he did bring the baby and say, I did this to her. So I gave him kudos for that. I was like, you know, you obviously want to stop, or you wouldn't have come here and brought yourself before me and known that you're going to be arrested.
Right.
But when the cops came, as I would take the baby to this trailer, we had a trailer 11 over there, which was a trailer with a colposcope, which is a special mechanism with like super high magnification to be able to see any tears or bruising when people are sexually assaulted. And when you were there, you had to go with the kids into the room to
Right.
kind of help comfort them while they had their exam.
Right.
And this was an 8-month-old. And he came in and I said, like, obviously you want help and you want to stop doing this because you wouldn't have brought her and admitted it if you didn't. I said, but I'm really sorry. I have to turn you over to the authorities while I go in with her. And I talked to the officers outside. I'm like, look, I get it. Just please don't do anything until I come out. Right. I mean, they took him for a perp walk.
Did they?
They did. And half of me didn't have an issue with it,
Right.
because I was holding this baby, and half of me was like, it's not okay to do that. And I verbalized it. I wasn't like, hey, wink, wink, don't do anything.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys really, I mean, you're here with me. I know that there's nothing wrong with him right now. I'm citing that there's nothing physically wrong with him right now, and he's bringing her in. So if something's physically wrong with him when you bring him back, we have a problem, because I can't
Right. That's an ethical-
ethically
yeah.
present that
Right.
that didn't happen. And they're like, okay. And they took him and they beat the crap out of him.
I definitely think more than 50% of me would have been like, fuck yeah.
Right. I put on my report that he didn't have anything on him, and nobody followed up. But I did my part. Like,
Right,
you know,
right. Ethically, you're okay.
Yeah.
They should have shoved a broom handle up his ass
Well,
and see how that feels. That's
God
what
only
a
knows
what a
what they
horrible
did.
human
Wow.
being.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that baby did not go back to their house ever.
No. Oh, no. She was taken to foster care. Yeah. That night. But I mean, but still, like the fact that, yeah, because mom didn't show up to pick her up either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, poor little baby.
Yeah. So that's the
How long
worst
ago was
case
that?
I've ever had. That was 2003.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, but that stuff stays with you.
Well, yeah, that's talk
had-
about trauma.
Yeah.
Parents who are poisoning their kids with arsenic.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I had, the most
What?
interesting case I ever
Oh my
had
God.
was this cute little adorable kid who I loved. I just adored him. He was delicious, and his little brother was even cuter. And the mom brought them to treatment all the time. It was at the same place. And the kid said he wanted to be called a different name, and everybody, they committed him. When I was off for the night, they called the 911 number, our on-call number, and they committed him to a hospital. And they said that he's wanting to be called a different name. He's obviously experiencing schizophrenia, blah, blah, blah. So I wake up the next morning, I get all these calls. I go in to see him in the inpatient, and I just said, you know, so tell me why you're saying you want to be called by this other name. And he said, I'm named after my father. And I'm like, what idiot didn't ask you this question? Like,
Right?
Why did they just totally traumatize you by locking you down? So we got him out that day. I'm like, you're like, who locked him up? Like, are you dumb? What resident psychiatrist thought, I'll have my first child inpatient experience tonight?
Right.
So it was ridiculous, but that literally was his coping mechanism. I don't want to keep being called my father's name. His father was the one who was sexually abusing him over
Right.
and over
I
again.
figured that out, yeah.
I'm like, you know, and I had to go against him in court, and he was evil. Oh
Was
my
he?
God, was he evil? I was so happy to get out of there. But I'm like, if he makes me feel like this, I can't imagine what he made those boys feel like.
Poor things.
Yeah.
People should not be allowed to have kids.
Yeah. Well, they had a great story. They ended up okay. Dad went to jail, and mom was very supportive. But yeah, I mean, hello, ask a few questions.
Right. Simple question. That makes the most sense. You know,
Right.
my hairdresser changed his name for that same reason.
Yeah.
He changed his name because his abuser had his same name.
Right. It's an association. Why wouldn't you want to get away with that?
Why?
from
Yeah,
that,
wouldn't
you
want
know?
it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Who do you think has a better chance of recovery? Is there any type of person that has a better chance at recovery than another type of person? Are they smarter, faster, brighter, better family, not better family, more independent, dependent? Who? Anybody? Or is it just a big bag of whatever?
I don't think it's a big bag of whatever.
Well, what do you think then?
I'd say stronger support systems. Unfortunately, most alcoholics and addicts are extremely smart, very charismatic. They've built up, you know, this resilience to being questioned about their disease, and, you know, they know how to negotiate things very well. But for me, I've always seen time and time again with a strong support system that they fare much better than the ones that don't have that. But it also has to be a smart support system, one who's not going to be codependent to the end, right? I mean,
Although, I don't know. Like, I always go back. I know you've read this book, but there's a book I read called Strong at the Broken Places in grad school. And it was really that there is this factor that you just have or don't have that may make you more successful in sort of overcoming trauma or whatever. Like, yeah, you definitely need a strong support system, but some people still can overcome it even without that. Like, there is this factor that isn't necessarily identifiable. It's not like, oh, because you're smart, you'll be more likely or because
It's like the boys in the hood syndrome. It's the weed that grows
Almost,
in the,
yeah.
like that unbelievable fortification of like
Right.
internal desire to
Something.
succeed. Yeah, they're like unbelievable.
Where you're just like, I am going to make it regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
And you can't predict that always.
Yeah.
That's
Like, you
also
just
genetic,
don't
you think? It's
It
not
might be.
learned.
Or
I
it
don't
could
think
be
it's learned.
It could be it
could be survival
limbic.
instinct.
Could be
Yeah.
primal survival instinct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That despite this genetic complete cornucopia of crap, I'm going to make it through anyway. And
Right.
yeah, it's almost like a mutation, you know?
A
Like,
little bit, right. It's like the X-Men.
The
Yeah.
resilience.
exactly. The X factor. It totally is.
The X Factor, the resilience
Factor.
mutation.
Yeah.
I read the book Kathy's
Yeah.
talking about, Strong at the Broken Places. I'll put it on my website. I'll put a link. It was a very hard book for me to read because
Really?
I, even with my childhood, never thought of myself as abused, so to speak. And when I started reading that book, I was like, "Are you kidding me? I didn't think of myself as a victim like that. You know, I knew that I was a victim in some ways, but not. The word abuse to me is the 8-month-old,
Right.
Is the people who are poisoned by arsenic. But it's not. It's actually a much wider array. My psychological and emotional stuff, was almost as abusive in some ways as being hit constantly, and,
Right.
you know, but. I never looked at myself as an abused child until I read that book. Thanks, Kathy. Sorry. I know I think I texted you and called you the whole time going, I can only read it in short
Increments.
pieces and then I have to sit it down because it's so heavy for me to have to process my feelings about things I had already processed.
Right.
I'd already processed this incident with my mom, and now I have read this, and now I'm processing it again through this filter of, wow, I can't believe I made it through that, and I can't believe that happened to that little girl.
Right. So now you're processing it as an adult who loves themselves, who's kind of walking them through it again and healing themselves as they walk through it, as opposed to, I have issues with my mom and I have to get through this and I have to love myself and that happened and I forgive it. But now it's like, oh my God, let's look at the layers of the onion.
It is.
Peel it back a little bit more and look how raw that was. And, you know, it's that reparenting.
It's kind of an ownership of it.
Right.
You know, you don't want to own a wart.
Right.
But sometimes the wart can't be removed.
Right.
And you have a choice. You can spend your whole life hiding it or disguising it. Or one day you can go, this is my wart. I mean, what am I going to do about it? It's my wart. But there's kind of a grieving and an acceptance that goes with that. You have to grieve the loss of this maybe imperfection or... you know, you all have the storybook ideas of your parents and of what you read in books and what you see in movies. That's this amazing thing. That definitely was not my experience. And I think at some point, at least in my brain, you always thought that was possible somehow.
Right.
Somewhere in the world, I will get that love. I don't even know if it's specifically from your mom, but that love doesn't come from anywhere but your mom.
Right.
You know, there's only one person who can give you that really in a complete way. And once you figure out that's not possible, it's very devastating. Where as an adult, where you go, wow, I really missed that thing that almost everybody else gets.
Right.
Why did I miss it? Am I a piece of shit?
Right. You go to that, am I unlovable? Of course. Why wouldn't I have received it if I wasn't unlovable?
Yeah. And then you also go to the place now, you heal through that. And then you go through the place of, no, that wasn't me. I just got a broken Oldsmobile.
Right.
That's what I got. I got to drive to school in a broken Oldsmobile where everybody else was in a brand new Mercedes.
Right.
So that's all I got.
But the hard part about the emotional and, you know, psychological trauma is for a lot of kids, they don't get to say, look at my bruise. Look what's happening to me. And so I get kids in my office because I see a lot of middle schoolers right now, and they're incredible. They're like, their parents bring them in for that initial session and they pretend to be that Norman Rockwell family. And I'm like, okay, let's not kid ourselves. Why are we here?
Yeah, right.
Like, you're in my office.
Yeah.
So something's not going right.
Right.
So stop fucking pretending like it is. Right.
Right,
You know,
right.
like, and I'll tell the parents, like, thank you for the information, and then they can scoot. And from that point on, it's the kid and my relationship with the child. And, you know, I say to them exactly what you can say in here that won't get outside of these walls, and what you can say that will trigger a response for me to contact your parents, like anything with self-harm or harm to others, or, you know, behavior that would end in them having an issue. And we're very just, you know, they ask me any kind of question they want. right off the top, like, what about this? What about that? What about this with this trigger response? And so that they kind of understand the breadth of it. And then they start feeling comfortable and they start saying things to me like, well, you know, my mom's not as perfect as she like tries to make it out with you.
Ooh.
And I say, I don't doubt it. And then all of a sudden they come in with their phone and they say, can I please play you something of my parents screaming at each other? And I say, well, let me put it to you this way. I believed you when you told me. I had no doubt. But if you want to play it, I'm happy to listen to it.
Right.
But you don't need to for evidence because I understand exactly how you experienced it. And sometimes they'll play it and sometimes they won't because they're like, oh God, maybe this will, you know, like really corrupt the relationship she has with my parents. I'm like, it really won't. I get it, but when they do play it some of the time, I'm like, holy crap.
Right.
Like, you're the well one. Okay, just so you know. And I'll tell them, I'm like, you're doing great. Just so you know. And you handled yourself in that argument phenomenally, even though you knew you were being recorded. So I'm going to say that like 50% of you was really holding back there. But, you know, even so, you had the presence of mind to be able to do that in the midst of this argument. You know,
Right.
They love it. They love being able to have a place where they can finally go, this is the emotional crap that I go through that nobody can see on the outside.
It's the validation.
It's totally
Yeah.
validating because a lot of times you get kids that are home and they just take and take and take this abuse from their parents and they have no one to share it with. They don't have a sibling.
Right.
They don't have an adult who actually understands and sees all of the family dynamics. And so it's so freeing for them to be able to go, see, look what's happening to me.
Yeah, I think that was my experience. Georgia went to see a therapist because she was having sleep anxiety. And I was giving her the tools that I had, which I am no professional. And we were, of course, fighting back and forth because I'm mom.
Right.
And that's part of that dynamic too, is mom doesn't know anything.
Right.
And I totally got that. So at a certain point, I was like, we need to go see somebody professional. So we went to see this lady. And the number one thing that helped was validation. Was the therapist said to her, your mom was giving you these tools ABC. A and B are correct. C was totally wrong. And all Georgia heard was mom was wrong.
Yep.
And she listened to everything that doctor said, did it to the letter. We had 3 visits with her and she has never had sleep
That's
problems
crazy.
again. And I believe it was the validation she needed, which is fine. I kept saying to Georgia in my house, I don't need to be right. I just
need
want
you to
to
be
help.
better. Yeah.
I just want to help. But in her perspective, I think she just thinks I just want to win.
Right.
And I really fucking don't. And I don't know how to say any other way than I don't care who's the winner. I just want you to go to sleep and sleep well. So let's go get some help.
I told you about that Untangled book, right?
Oh, I've read it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to
love
read
that.
it again.
I love that. The whole thing about them being on the inside of the pool and pushing off against you as you're literally the perimeter, you know, out the perimeter of the pool, and like how it kills to have them push off from you and they want to be connected, but they don't want to be connected.
Yeah.
And you're like, get hold of yourself.
Bert and I were talking about this morning, where I said, you know, that book said they want to be fiercely independent and they're incapable of it.
Right.
And guess who they can't be fully independent from? Mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so who are they going to be pissed at?
Right.
Mom and dad. Because they can't do it without mom and dad, but they want to so badly.
Right.
And so they blame mom. It's your fault that I can't do this, which is entirely untrue.
Right.
But they're so immature, as they should be, they can't suss that out in the moment. There's so much shit going on in their brains, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
Which I would be happy to discuss, because I actually thought to myself today, after we've had quite the week with Isla, the insane person that I'm living with, I thought, I read Untangled, but I read it when I was really busy. And so I don't think I got everything I needed out of that book. I read it partly and I listened to it partly.
Yeah.
And I think I need to go back and read it. And I'm finding that I am remembering things better when I read an actual book
Yeah.
and
Than when you
not a
listen to the
device.
audio.
Because
Yeah.
I can't mark anything on that device. I know you can, but I can't find it again.
Right.
So what difference does it make if I mark it if I can't find the
Right.
freaking thing I'm looking for?
You like being
So-
able to flip through the pages and actually see.
I hate
don't-
reading on a device.
I can't read on a device
I can't
either. I
do
can
it.
do an audiobook and I'll actually internalize it more
Oh, no, I can't.
Because
No.
I don't. I zone out a little bit more.
Oh, see, and I'm more audio than I'm an audio learner, so I can like be like, oh, I was on the 405 when I heard that piece. Like,
No, I can't do that.
I can't
no,
do that.
I'm
Yeah.
a visual.
But I do
Yeah, I
love
read the
being able
book.
to mark and like flip back to that
Me
page
too.
and see that was the front of chapter 2. I remember, and
Me too.
that and How to Raise an Adult.
Oh, that's
Julia
next.
Oh my God, I'm
Hines.
reading that right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
we
Oh, we
both
just
saw
talked
her
about this.
speak,
Of
and
course, yes.
she was phenomenal.
Well, that's
Yes,
another
very-
podcast too.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Because we're reading a book now called Better Than Before. That's our next book club
Right.
for this podcast. After that, I want to read How to Raise an Adult.
Yes.
And then after that, I want to read Untangled. And then I'm out of book ideas. But
Okay.
I'm sure we'll come up with one or two more in the course of these podcasts. So, what is the worst substance, in your opinion, a person can be addicted to? What's the worst one?
Crystal meth.
That's what I think too. What do you think, Kathy?
I don't know. I mean, that's a really good one.
I mean,
I gotta say, like, if you're gonna be like, that is a shit show.
I get that heroin
Why is it a
I
shit
get
show?
Oxycontin's a close second because, you know, you can get it so easily. But crystal meth, have you ever seen Faces of Meth?
No.
Oh, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's amazing. When I was teaching psychology at LA Valley, I would play that, and the kids in my class were like, "Oh my God!" It shows mugshots of people from the first one to the second one.
Oh
to the
my
fifth.
God.
And you see them. It's like it almost looks like claymation. How they just dwindle and get
And it's
bugs
rapid.
on. It's rapid. It is rapid, and it's easy to hide. It comes in powder. You can smoke it. You can snort it. You can shoot it. Heroin's a little bit more
Gentle?
but it's harder to find. Crystal's huge in the gay community, huge. Like and it promotes the ability to kind of sustain an erection, and it just
Keeps you skinny.
yeah, keeps you skinny. So it's got the Jenny Crank factor going on. Jenny Crank
also
diet.
cheaper, I
It's
think.
cheaper. And it's hard. It's easier to find. It's
Right.
just it's
Yeah.
floated around, easier. It's kind of like cocaine's, idiotic cousin. Like cocaine's a little
White
bit more
trash younger
highbrow.
brother. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's their white trash younger brother, and I think there's more access to it, and so because of all that, and it just takes them down quick, and it causes psychosis quickly. It just
And paranoia, right?
Oh yeah.
And, like, the
they're coming
addiction
to get you.
factor, I think, is quicker.
And the addiction
too.
factor is
What is
quicker.
that?
Yeah.
The addiction factor. Like, you're
Yeah.
more quickly addicted to that
And the
than
side
a lot
effects.
of other.
They
Yeah.
do heroin and they're vomiting right away, and not everybody can get past that. Like
Right.
you got to push through that. But with crystal, you don't get that. You're just flying high. So it's a different.
It's
yeah.
rampant in the South.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Meth in the South is just, and up in Appalachia is so bad. It really is an epidemic. I
Yeah.
think meth in and of itself. And what does it do to your brain? Does it just eat your brain
Cooks
up?
it.
Yeah, it's like the eggs in the frying pan.
Yeah.
Right?
This is your brain on
Like,
drugs.
so then can you recover from that? Like we were saying, your brain can recover. Can it really recover from meth?
I truly believe that your memory is massively affected. I've
Really?
seen a lot of clients who have said that their short-term memory going forward in life has been affected by that.
Really?
Now, I mean, alcohol can pickle a brain. You get wet brain from drinking too much alcohol for too long. I mean, I've known friends who've lost parents to it.
What is wet brain?
Wet brain is when you drink I forget the medical term for it.
I don't know.
Like, I think it starts with an L. I forget the medical term, but it's so much alcohol that your brain literally turns to jelly.
Oh,
Yeah, my friend's dad was institutionalized for that.
and then what
never came
happens? Your
out.
body just starts shutting down?
It's almost like you're on, life support. Your body continues, but you don't have the ability to think or process like normal people. You just kind of go down to borderline intellectual functioning level, and
Wow. Does it affect your autonomic system?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if I don't know. It doesn't in the capacity that he can breathe. He was
Right.
able to breathe. He was able to, but I don't know just the complexities of what it does beyond. He was basically
Wow.
a vegetable.
That's a
you know,
lot of
like
No
alcohol.
self-care. Like
literally
nothing?
like no ADLs, no ability to tend to self. Yeah.
Wow.
He was institutionalized from God, I think in his 50s on, and he died there.
Holy
How
shit.
long?
So you can't recover from it.
I want to say 20 years.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, no, there's no recovery.
That's
from it.
crazy. That's a
It's-
lot of
it's
alcohol.
like your brain has been, encased in formaldehyde, basically. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Warnickel-Korsakoff
Thank you. Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wernicke-Korsakoff. Ooh. Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
So meth is hands down, you think, the worst drug?
I think it's much faster than that. It takes years to pickle a good cranium. It does. It does. I think it does. Right?
No, you're right. That is very long term. Like that doesn't happen quickly.
No, it's not something.
Whereas crystal meth,
not nearly as common either.
Yeah. No, I've never even heard of it.
Well, it's not. I mean, you could jack yourself up with B1 all you want. It's still not going to, alter the course of it. But yeah. But I mean, also, like, how many incidents do you think happen with? I mean, incidents can happen with drinking too, but like, I think they happen much more rapidly with coronary stuff with crystal.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think the drinking is more like behavioral stuff that happens.
Driving. You can drive on crystal too. That's another thing. You drive on crystal and coke. You're very alert and vigilant.
Fuck that, man. No way. You also think you can drive your car through another car because you are superhuman.
Right.
There's that.
I managed an apartment building for years, and I had this client. I had to go to like a learning seminar about being able to identify drug users as a resident.
Oh, how funny. I did that.
It was fascinating.
And did you kick them out? Like, what if you identified one?
Well, it was against policy to do drugs on the property, so you had a reason to evict them. It was a legal right to evict them. The legalization of pot changed that ever so slightly. But truly illegal substances like meth was definitely on my list of what I learned about. So I had this one resident. I was sitting in the seminar and they were like, do you have a resident that details his car in the middle of the night? And I went, hi, I do. I do. And they're like, do you find that pieces of appliances are taking apart to the tiniest piece? And I went, I do.
Although that could describe manic behavior, which could also be bipolar. So don't judge.
This guy, and then
they're called tweakers. You know that, right?
Yeah, tweakers.
They tweak on stuff.
Oh, he was a fucking tweaker.
They're tinkers. They tinker like Tinkerbell at night. Yeah, they just tick, tick, tick.
And he'd knock on my door 2:00 in the morning. This was before Bert, and I lived by myself, and I'd be like, I'm not answering the door because you are out of your mind.
Right. Well, anybody who's going to knock at 2 a.m, right? Unless there's houses on fire for something. There's no urgency there. There's no understanding of what like a boundary is and like normal sleep hours for people because they're little vampires.
He checked every meth box, every one, and then I had to do an inspection. I have to inspect the apartments, and I went in his apartment and was like, oh my God, the stackable washer dryer had been disassembled into every teeny tiny piece and was spread all over the living room. He had disassembled the dishwasher entirely, and he had put padlocks, not padlocks, deadbolts on every door in the apartment on the inside, so he could lock himself in a room and no one could get in the room. Bathroom, bedroom, closet door had a lock. Yeah. And then there was one wall.
They were coming to get him.
Someone was definitely. No, it had a lock and the chain.
Yeah. Did he have rashes on his face?
I did not notice that.
You know what that's from?
No.
Sticking your head under the door to see if there's.
Are you kidding?
So not kidding.
Well, there was parquet at the door.
Oh,
so he wouldn't have gotten
okay. No,
maybe
parquet.
a splinter.
You did him a solid. With parquet. Yeah.
But then I went in his bedroom, and there was this burn mark up one whole wall, and I was like, "You're fucking evicted, dude." And you were so out of town. Yeah. And his dad was a very wealthy guy from Arkansas who paid his rent.
Yeah.
And he paid his rent on time every month. He had no, because his daddy paid it. And I had to call his dad and say, I think your son has a problem, and I think you need to come get him.
I think you need a visual inspection of that problem.
Exactly. And I was like, I am going to serve him papers immediately, but I think you should come get him. The attitude I got from his dad was not to be believed.
Well, he knew he had a problem, and he was happy to have him in an apartment, and you were doing him a disservice by making him move him again, probably.
It was awful. It was one of the worst things.
Yeah.
That, and I did have someone who had a serious eating disorder who continually backed up my whole stack of plumbing.
Oh,
I called her the chicken lady, because we would pull like whole pieces of chicken out of her toilet line.
Oh my
where
God.
She had just chewed it
and then
vomited it. And
did you ever see Girl Interrupted?
No.
Oh my God.
She was also a hoarder, this woman, chicken lady, was a hoarder too.
Brittany Murphy was the resident eating disorder, like personality disorder. And she was like, she was addicted. She would have just roast chicken. That's all she would eat to control herself. And then there was this whole scene where she talks about her daddy, who was obviously touching her, that her daddy got her an apartment and it has an eat-in chicken. And they're like, you mean kitchen? She's like, that's what I said. It was chicken.
Well, this woman had an eating chicken too. Let me tell you, I pulled so much chicken out of the garage. I kept going. Then when the plumber came the first time, I was like,
what'd you pull out of there?
Chicken? He was like, it's chicken. I was like, you mean like chicken you eat? It hasn't been digested at all. He's like, nope. I was like, are you fucking kidding
Had
me?
he seen that before?
Yeah, he had seen it before.
Plumbers,
but
I'm sure.
I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
But when you go in her apartment, I could do a whole episode on just the people at rented apartments too.
I'm sure.
Her whole apartment had a path, right? A path to the kitchen, a path to the bathroom.
Control issues, right?
And the bedroom was completely full. She slept on the
OCD,
couch.
yeah.
There was a path to the couch, and floor to ceiling, paper towels, Lysol wipes.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Pepper. Floor to ceiling.
Well, you could run out of that stuff one day, Leanne.
I mean, covered the windows.
That
to the
and
point-
shoes. 13
Shoes
size shoes.
and
Yes.
hats.
You should have that.
Maybe I
Anywhere
should
you go.
start calling him the chicken guy.
There you go.
Because she was the chicken lady for years, and I had to let her go too because I gave her housekeeping warnings over and over again to clean up because the fire department
fire hazard.
could,
Yeah,
exactly
sure.
they couldn't
Absolutely.
even get in any window,
Yeah.
and if that shit caught on fire, we'd be
Everybody
The whole
go
building
down.
blown
would be-
up. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you imagine 8,000 cases of Dr. Pepper exploding at one time.
They could yellow
Next to
tag you.
Lysol.
They could totally yellow tag you.
I know.
Yeah.
So it was actually really serious. And she was, first of all, she was a nutritionist for a living.
Stop it.
Swear. And second of all, she
it.
went every time I mean, can you imagine? I was like,
No,
are you really?
no, I can't. No, because I'm just thinking, like, can you imagine, like,
can.
if you were bringing your child to her and you had no,
Right, you had no idea.
Well, no, she looked
You should
anorexic.
only drink Dr. Pepper.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
You have Lysol wipes on hand at all
Right,
times.
right.
She had big knots on her knuckles, you know, which is where they drag their
Right.
knuckle on their teeth when they're vomiting. So much she had calloused the 2 fingers on her one
They
hand.
also have, like, very wide
She
faces.
did. She had a very
Like,
wide
yeah.
face, very skinny. She probably weighed 100 pounds, maybe soaking wet. But every time I would serve her this notice, she would fall so completely apart. It was so difficult emotionally to go through with her because I was like, you are clearly mentally ill.
You're not
Right.
healthy.
And I don't really know how to make this easier for you, but I can't allow this behavior. In my job is to protect the 38 other units that live here, and I can't allow you to have cockroaches and chicken in the drain. And you're on the first floor, so now the second floor, third floor, and fourth floor are backing up because of your behavior, and I can't. It was awful. But I felt so bad that none of this has anything to do with addiction. But it's a pretty good story, right?
No, she had an addiction to chicken.
I was going to say, yeah.
She was addicted to chicken, Dr. Pepper, Lysol wipes, paper towels. Come on. She was addicted. So when you're working with addicts, how do you keep yourself healthy?
How did you?
By also being addicted. No.
Right. By taking your flask out of your chair when you're done with the session.
Yeah, I don't know. There does have to be a certain level almost of detachment, although that sounds so cruel, but there does have to be a little bit of that. Although
It's part of that non-judgmental piece that we're trained to do.
right. Not that that's super easy, but I don't know specifically with addiction, but
For me, it's humor.
It's humor.
Yeah, a lot of humor.
Keeps you healthy.
And I use it with them. I use it to challenge them.
Interesting.
So they'll say something like, I don't have a problem. So I'll say, okay, and I understand you, but just, so let me break this down. You're losing your job because they found a bottle in your desk. Your wife served you with divorce papers. Your kids said that you smelled of alcohol, but you don't have a problem. I'm like, just on the surface, I feel like I'm finding it hard to grasp. Like,
right.
And sometimes they'll laugh and be like, well, if you put it like that, and I'm like, well, I feel like the world is putting it like that right now. And I'm like, but challenge me. Give me another direction to go in here.
Right.
You know, like show me how you are correct.
Right.
I'm open.
Right.
You know,
enlighten me.
Go long, Howie. Come on, like, give me something. You know, they won't. They can't. They can't. And so if they can kind of laugh at themselves a little bit,
Right.
you know, then I kind of say like, so my question is, do you want another way of doing it?
Right.
And if you do, ask me, because I'm not going to force feed you.
So speaking of another way to do it, is there any other way to deal with an addict besides the 12-step program?
I think water seeks its own level. They will find ways, like rational recovery is one. My problem with the other ways is that most of them are money seeking, and AA is not. Most of them, Passages is a bunch of crap. I'm sorry.
I don't know what that.
knows
I don't know what
about
that
Passages.
means. It's a center, right?
Call me if you want. It's a center in Malibu where they purport that they can help you get sober without the 12 steps. They are so crooked. I've personally seen people who've worked there. I mean, I've treated people who've worked there so I know the inner workings of it more than most would know. And they're full of crap. But aside from those companies that will take $30,000 from you over and over and over again and purport that they have 100% success, which is totally untrue.
But what do they do that's different than the 12 step?
Therapy, group therapy, basically.
Well, but it's also like you're in a center,
Right.
like you are removed from the world.
Right.
Whereas
so
12
you're
step
like sober
program,
living.
come
You're
with me.
not.
Let me just take you away from everything you could possibly
Right.
be
Okay.
using.
All right.
Except in
Right.
certain facilities will give you a little something to take the edge off.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so as they place you in a bubble
Exactly.
Pretty much,
with no skills to
Right.
then
Anybody
re-enter
can make
society.
that. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
Jesus,
Right.
you can't get out and do anything. You're going to be successful for those 30 days.
Right.
You know,
So then the guy that wrote A Million Little Pieces, I'm sure you read that book.
the one who Oprah didn't vet before she had him on her show.
Right. That
Poor
one.
Oprah.
But his method, if he had that truth in the book, right? If the truth of how he recovered is true, was he really an addict or was he just a heavy drinker?
What was his method? I don't remember.
He found the root of why he started drinking and then dealt with the root and then the drinking stopped.
Yeah, I think that's an age-old battle that AA has had for years, and they don't really care if they lose or not because
Right.
millions and millions of people have gotten sober in AA
Totally.
without paying a cent unless
Right,
they
right.
want to pay for in the meeting you pass a basket like you do in church, and you
Right.
can give $1 or not give $1 to support the rent. Like
Right.
there's no requirement to pay anything
Right.
at all. Even if they're given the basket, they can pass it on and not do anything for the entire time they're sober.
Totally.
Because other people will gladly give because they're like, well, thank you for saving my life. Here's $1, you know?
Yeah.
So I think because they're open and there is no one person that runs it, it's not governed by anybody except the people in it. And that's constantly rotating.
Right.
They feel like you can feel whatever you want about us, but we're going to stay sober.
Right.
So
At the end
you
of the
can
day.
join us,
Right.
or you don't have to join us.
Right.
And that's kind of how I do it with my clients. If they come to me with a problem and they want a solution, I say, this is the free option that's worked for millions of people. There are treatment centers. You can go to treatment centers. It's like basically boot camp and get ahead, jump start if you feel like you're too weak to be able to handle this yourself and like put it down and go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Maybe treatment center's better. I had an agnostic that did not want AA for the life of him, and he tried rational recovery.
What's rational recovery?
It's like 12. Basically, it's the same damn thing, except they don't say God.
Okay.
That's it. They don't say God.
Right.
And people are so stuck on that they, and I know addicts who are in AA who are Buddhists, atheists. They just don't say the word when it's time for like holding hands at the end of the meeting.
Right.
They're like, whatever, screw it. I don't care. I believe in,
Buddha.
Yeah, exactly. Or
nothing.
Grover. Like
Is
whatever
it,
they
the word
right.
is a universal word.
Right.
People get hung up on the word.
Right.
They have another problem
wanna get
entirely.
sober.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
my
It's just a
guy
word.
had a massive issue, and he decided to go to rational recovery, and they stuck him for a bunch of money, and he ended up going to AA on his own. But I won't force anybody to do anything. What I found is they all gravitate toward AA in the end.
Right.
And they're successful.
So why do you think AA
And
works?
I get no kickback for it. Because I think it provides them with the community. There's a book for them to read to understand what the problem may be, or the history of it, or why these people have sought help. There's fellowship. There's a bunch of other people in various stages of their disease working toward the common goal. There's stories all the time of people getting up and sharing their experience of what happened to them, so they're relatables. And I think the best test to see if you have a real alcoholic or a hard drinker is you take anybody who's having issues with alcohol and you put them in a meeting of AA. If they don't laugh, they're not an alcoholic.
Interesting.
Because these people will tell their stories, and if you're an alcoholic, and they'll say, I've seen some meetings where they're like, and if you laughed, you're fucked because you're one of us. And it's so true. And the people I would go and give cakes to clients who had a year of sobriety, 2 years of sobriety, and they would bring their family. And I would look at their family who's sitting in the meetings, and these people are saying things. And I woke up in bed having pissed myself again. It was like, ah! And the parents were like, oh my God, did he just say that he urinated on himself? And you're like, yeah, get over it. They're addicts. They do that shit.
Right.
And they're all why are they laughing? It's very morose. I'm like, no, they're relating to each other. They love that somebody else just got up there and shared their story, and nobody in here is judging them except for you two fuckers who need to put, a better face on because your kid's up there right now, and they don't get it. They can't relate. They don't think it's funny.
Right.
They can't say, they just think it's horrific. And they pity the alcoholic, and the alcoholic's like super happy to found their people.
Right.
So I think that kind of makes up for the family that they didn't have.
I also think there are so many pockets of AA. Like, you can find your people.
Young
like,
people.
if this meeting doesn't work, there's 1-2 blocks away that might work for you. Like, the dynamic is always changing. I feel like there is a massive support system there.
I've taken clients to ones in Rodeo that were shit your pants funny. I mean, because all they talked about for an hour was how their housekeeper didn't show up that day. And I was like, oh my God, Marletta, are you kidding? I can't believe she would do that to you. Like, seriously.
You should drink.
I swear. Yes.
Drive you to drink right there.
You go back to it because I think you've earned it this week.
Oh my God.
What was Marta thinking,
What was Marta thinking? How dare
And then
she?
there's other like NA meetings and there's CA meetings and like
Al-Anon. Is
Al-Anon's amazing.
I've heard that from so many people that Al-Anon
amazing.
is a life-changing place.
It is. It is. It helps anybody involved with an alcoholic.
Right. That sort of answers my question, because I've always wondered why there's only one proven method. Why? I mean, I know that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get that. But...
Well, there's antabuse.
What is that?
Oh, antabuse? It's amazing. It's a pill that they take that gives them a visceral, physical, like just vomiting reaction anytime they drink booze. So it's like they'll take antabuse and like I think it's effective like maybe 12 hours later or something.
I don't know.
Oh, really? It's super old school. They I think developed it like back in the 60s or something. But they take it and then they literally will violently vomit, and it's kind of a physical barrier to them drinking.
It's like a spanking.
Exactly, but it's more like an electrocution. Like, it's awful. It's awful. Yeah. So they'll do that to people to kind of help them self-regulate. So you can go that route if you want.
That sounds
a lot
amazing.
less gentle,
Right? Doesn't really help you change your behaviors or your way of thinking.
It does modify it for the time that you're on it.
But I mean, your behaviors outside the triggers
it does
and
nothing
whatever.
Else. Yeah.
I mean, I have very little knowledge of what goes on in AA. I read the 12 steps 1,000 years ago.
Super dry if you don't have context. It's so weird. I mean, unless you're in there and you like hear what it actually looks like when people are working those steps.
Right.
It's a very bizarre,
I'm really glad you said that, because I read it going, a fucking dummy could come up with this shit.
Right.
But then you're right. It was out of context because I was just reading it at home going, I'm curious what those 12 steps are.
Oh, I get teenagers that go into treatment and they look at them on the wall. They're like, all right, I read them and I did them. Whatever. Good to go. And I'm like, all right, you got this, sweetheart. You can leave now.
Right. You did all 12 today.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's what they'll do in the meeting. They're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Done. Got it. Okay, fine. Whatever.
But you know what's interesting? I remember when I read them that some of the steps I did in those 7 years of being sober, not knowing that I was doing that.
Right.
Like going back and apologizing for wrongs.
Yep.
Isn't that one of the steps?
Yep.
I did that.
That's
and
your
I
amends.
also gave away things I felt obligated to hold on to because of my relationship with my mother. So like my mother was very into giving me jewelry. It was jewelry she chose. It was nothing I liked.
Right.
It was something she liked. But it was a payment. They were payments. They were not gifts. They had strings attached. So I remember realizing that while I was reading one help book or another, and laying all the jewelry out and giving one piece to each of my cousins and going, I want you to have this because this is really a pretty piece of jewelry, and I think you would like this piece and you should have it. And it was very hard to do. It was really emotional because I was saying to myself, I don't need you, Mom. I don't need you. I'm not accepting what we've been in agreement to do.
Right, exactly.
I am now
cutting the strings,
rejecting the agreement we made.
Right.
It was really hard. But I think that might have, in some weird way, been a 12-step. No?
Yeah, it was letting go of your character defect of you hanging on to that relationship with her.
Is that a step?
Letting go of your character defects? Absolutely.
Well, that was the only one I had, so. But after I remember reading it going, I did go back and apologize to this person for acting this way while I was drunk.
Yeah, that's a 9th step, making amends.
But see, maybe I did the 12 steps all on my own.
Right. Well, I think what they've done is they got together and they thought about what could we do to help these people heal.
Right.
They need to do a fearless searching moral inventory of themselves and let go. What they did was they found a way to process the traumas that they were experiencing and that's one of the things they say is you cannot regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. You can't have these traumas haunt you and think you can hide them away in a closet and you never have to deal with them again.
Right.
You have to acknowledge them. You know, as Stuart Smalley says, like trace and erase them. Like that was
trace and erase.
Just kind of like uncover, trace and erase.
How funny.
It was very funny, but it's very true. So you have to look at what's ailing you, kind of open it up, explore it, excavate it, let it out, and not be ashamed of it. Because if you're ashamed of it, you're going to want to hide it.
Right.
If you don't look at it,
starts the drinking.
Yep. It starts the cycle all over again. So they basically took a psychological principle and applied it and just put God into it because they were like, if these people aren't going to rely on family or therapists, or they need a higher power to say like, okay, give it up. Just give it up to somebody. We don't care who it is. It can be an invisible thing.
Right.
Have the faith and just keep moving forward. And so they kind of put that all into one little
12 steps
program, where people could kind of follow the steps and you'll be free.
Right.
Just keep doing everything enlisted in front of you and you'll, hopefully
that's also
come out
one
the
of the
side.
Huge successes is that people need direction.
Yeah.
And it is very clear.
It's very clear.
You do this, then you do this, and you do this. Like it's very clear cut.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, do this.
And I've never met anybody who has successfully completed them and not been able to maintain some sobriety. Now they've slipped, but if they've actually gone through all of them, more often than not, they have had success, and it's crazy to see the difference, the transformation. It's insane.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right.
So interesting. I'm going to have to go back and read them again because I really, now that we're talking, think that I maybe did a lot of 12 steps on my own. I had a sponsor. Not really. It was Scott, the Reiki guy.
Yeah.
He was, I was talking to him all the time about what I was going through.
Right.
And that's like a sponsor.
They say rarely, you never want to stay as sick as your secrets. So you have to have one person you trust.
I did that.
And that's your sponsor.
I totally did that. And I was in therapy. And, I've talked about this so many times. I feel like I'm harping on it. But when I was date raped in college, I'd buried it. And I was in a movie theater watching some stupid movie like Mr. Wrong or something stupid.
And it came out.
And I grabbed the girl next to me and I got to tell you this right now or I'm going to bury it.
Yeah.
So we went back to my apartment. I told her the whole thing. She wasn't my person I told all my secrets to.
Right.
But I knew that secret needed to be out.
Yeah. Right.
I needed to not, if I didn't say it right then, I was just going to put it right back in.
Right.
And hide it. Yeah. So I'm so fascinating. I'm going to have to look at the 12 steps again. And if I did the 12 steps all on my own, I am a pretty phenomenal human being.
That's right.
But I do drink, but I'm not that.
Right.
I really don't have a problem with alcohol or substance or pot, or I don't have an addictive personality.
Right. It doesn't come out in every pore of your life.
I don't have it anywhere. Yeah. I am obsessed with nothing.
They say it's like a disease of more. If one is good, 1,000's better.
No, I definitely don't have that.
Yeah, right.
Bert makes fun of me in Georgia because we're like, no, one donut's good.
Oh no,
And he
no,
and I are like, I'll have 8, and I'll have it for lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And Georgia and I are like, any more than one, and I'm really sick.
Right, one is good. Yeah,
I'm
no,
good.
there is no. It's a
That
disease of
self-regulation.
See, that's the piece that they're missing.
It's the hot
regulation.
singlet. It is
It's
the hot
singlet.
singlet.
It's
The
a hot
inability.
topic. That hot
It's the
singlet.
hot singlet.
Yeah, there's no self-regulation. There's no self-discipline. There's no ability to kind of, look at the long-term picture and go like, maybe 8 donuts is going to feel kind of bad in a few hours.
Right. No, they don't have that.
No, there's
or
the
even
now.
to learn from it.
Right.
Like
right.
last time I
The
had 8
inability.
donuts,
Right.
and I felt like shit. I'm still going to have 8 this time.
100%.
Because maybe I won't.
Yes.
You're like, what?
No, in fact, it's this time it's going to be different.
Right.
And,
This time it's
and
going to be
that's
different.
The main tenet of like all of the alcoholics will say to their people is, you suffer from insanity, and insanity is the idea that you're going to do the same thing again, but you're going to anticipate a different result.
Right.
Like that's the insanity of the drink is like, oh my God, you're going to eat those 8 donuts again, but you're going to think this time it's going to be different because you've been working out twice a week, or
Right,
because, or because these donuts aren't deep fried. Like,
Or that happened Sunday. Today's Tuesday. Totally different day.
Totally different day. I had a different meal earlier, and so this is going to be different this time. Yeah, that's the great denial that they fall prey to.
Well, 2 people in my house live in that great denial.
Right.
2 of us are pretty regulated.
Yep.
The other 2, I hope I can give Isla a little more. I've tried to give Isla a little more regulation. It does not help when, as I said in the house, there's 1 sheriff and 3 outlaws in my house. And 1 outlaw self-regulates herself, but will definitely go down the outlaw path. The other 2 are just guns a-blazing. Fuck you, Sheriff Wonk Wonk.
Right.
We're doing whatever we want, So if someone's at home listening to this podcast, thinking that they may have a problem, what advice, how would you say, here's how you tell? Like, for instance, this thing stuck in my head. A therapist told me a long time ago about dealing with my mother, who has personality disorder stuff. You only deal in fact. Fact is undeniable.
Right.
So what fact should they be looking for to go, maybe I should start exploring help or treatment? Any facts you could give them?
My favorite fact that I always give my clients is normal drinkers don't think about how much they're drinking.
Interesting.
Like, they don't sit there and go, I'm going to the party and people are going to have a glass of wine. So if I want more, I should probably have some before I go. I mean, normal people don't do that.
No, I definitely
They just don't.
that.
They might say we're going to a club tonight and the drinks are going to be $75, so I'll have a drink at home with my husband before I go, and then maybe I won't drink at the club because I'm not paying that. But they won't say like, well, we're going out, it's going to be this many hours, and I should drink this much on this much bread, and like they don't calculate. They just go, and like if they feel like having a drink, they'll have one, and if they don't, they won't. And it's just, it doesn't cross their mind. There's no planning on how to get more and when they're going to have it and how much it's going to. So I say if you're spending a lot of time trying to regulate your drinking instead of yourself, you might be a redneck.
Might be a redneck.
So I tell them, go try a meeting, and if you relate to those people, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
I tell them after. I tell them after because I don't want to give them the heads up that they're screwed.
Oh my
Because
God.
then they'll be like, I don't relate. I don't relate. I'm not relating. So they go and they're like, if they were like, oh my God, they were so funny. I totally like identified with so much of what they said. I'm like, And there's a pamphlet. I think it's called the 12 questions. Is it the 12 questions or the 10 questions? 10 or 20. They have different ones for different programs. But if you can actually look at it online and take the test of like, if you suffer from these issues, you might have a problem.
Okay.
And AA will never tell anybody you're an alcoholic.
No, right.
You go for yourself, you find out,
yeah.
you figure it out, you self-diagnose only. So nobody's going to like suck in to the vortex and keep you there. It's a very easygoing place.
Right.
But
So if you're thinking about planning, strategizing about your drinking day, you may want to look a little deeper. Anything else?
I also think if you're sitting there thinking, I wonder if there's an issue. Chances are there is. You should probably just go with that.
Yeah.
Like if you have to sit there and think, oh, maybe my drinking's a little bit more than other people's.
Right.
Like if it enters your mind, like if you're even questioning it, then maybe.
But however, there are people who fear being addicted to things, and so they will just self-analyze because of that, and that's their mechanism of being able to stay away from it. So, it's like the introspection isn't bad, but if they take the pamphlet and they look at it and they hit 8 out of 10 markers, then maybe, you know what direction you're going into. But if you're just kind of vigilant about it because you have many alcoholics in your life or you've had it in your family, I always say, like, the craziest person doesn't think they're crazy.
Hell no.
The craziest person asks himself, the craziest person does think that they're not crazy. The people that are sane ask themselves, am I nuts?
Am I crazy?
Right.
Yes.
Because they're doing that self-evaluation and they want to stay sane.
Yeah.
The crazy ones that are like, I'm great. There's no problem here.
Right. Well, I will say this about my journey with alcohol. I never did any drugs. Pot makes me throw up. I've smoked pot 4 times in my life. I've thrown up
God.
all 4 times. No can do. And my daddy scared me so bad about cocaine, I never touched it. He was like, one time.
Oh, yeah.
And you're totally addicted. Your life's over. And I was like, forget it. Never mind. But going through those 7 years of sobriety and that deep exploration and excavation of pain and figuring out who I was so hard and scary and completely invaluable. I am so happy with myself, as happy as I can be. Nobody's 100% happy with themselves, I'm sure, but I'm really happy. And I think if I hadn't been willing to walk into totally uncharted territory, because you know what drinking does. You know what that living is like. You're already living it. So to be able to go, I'm actually going to shut that life down, take a hard left turn, and just see where it takes me, takes a huge leap of faith. And if you don't believe in God, at least I think I've always believed in God or the universe but during that time, I called it my higher self.
Right.
The self I wanted to be, the self that knew what was right and wrong, that the lower self was drinking herself into not dealing with.
Right.
Because sometimes to be the higher self, you have to do hard things like self-regulate, like go to a party and not drink, which doesn't seem hard for me now, but at the time it was very hard. It was impossible.
Yeah.
So I looked at that impossible thing and said the exact same phrase you're saying about insanity. I said to myself in those years over and over again, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, you are insane.
Yeah.
But I think what holds a lot of people back is the fear of the unknown. Because really from that point forward, you build it yourself. And that can be really scary. And it can be the most amazing, empowering, liberating thing that you can imagine. But it does shift the relationships with everyone else in your life. Some positively, some negatively. Some go away and never come back. And others form that are more valuable than I could have imagined. I never thought I would be in a place to even have friends that I can't imagine living without, which is where I am now. Right. We talk about moving from time to time, and I'm like, I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I have Cathy.
People.
I have Sandy.
Yeah.
I have all these friends that are my family.
Yeah.
The person I was when I was drinking could never have formed those relationships.
Or kept them.
I could never have formed them.
You could have met them.
I could have met them, but I could have never formed those deep, meaningful relationships because I was numb and in denial of who I was. So if anybody's listening that gets any help out of it, I guess I would say to be brave, to dare to be great, because it takes greatness to go to AA and to say, I'm going to do these 12 steps because I love myself that much and I deserve it.
And let me say, if anyone has a problem with higher power or God, that whole concept, I knew a sponsor who told one of my clients, who I thought was fantastic, go out to the ocean and put your arm out and just tell the waves to stop. Right. If you can believe that the ocean is bigger, or if you can believe that your sponsor, who knows how to live their life like that, is bigger than you. And that, because some people are so damaged they can't see themselves as having a higher self.
Right.
So they need to externalize it to have Leanne's higher self is telling me to do this. So I can trust that she knows how to do it.
Totally.
Because I look at her and she's bright-eyed and she's happy and she's doing life. I'll trust her. I'll borrow her.
Right.
And that's acceptable too. And I'll say for nobody who's been to an AA meeting, there are not a bunch of 75-year-olds walking around with beers in bags. I mean, there are high-powered executives. There are celebrities. For the women out there, there's really hot men. For the men out there, there's really hot ladies.
There's school teachers.
There's every walk of
everybody.
life. You're not going to see as many physicians because they have their own closed meetings now, and so do a lot of rock musicians, but and physicians, but they,
do they meet together, the musicians and physicians?
They actually did have a musician physician meeting in Michigan. It was kind of amazing, but they have their own privacy because their practice would be ruined.
Totally.
Because people, as much as we don't want people to judge, they judge,
and people are flawed.
Yes, right.
It's okay.
They don't talk about it. It's extremely anonymous. Nobody in that meeting wants anybody knowing that they're in that meeting. All of them are in the same boat.
They have secret doors, 4 different entrances.
I mean, you can tell a meeting they're all smoking outside at the break or in the beginning, but once they go in, everybody's exactly the same.
Right.
And I just want to say, you will see all walks of life, from people sporting all Gucci to the bus that just came in from the recovery center with brand spanking new adolescents who don't know what the hell they're doing there but are scared out of their mind. So it's a fascinating place, and they should check it out and not be scared to.
Not be scared to.
Yeah.
Not be scared to go through the process of growth.
Yeah.
Because it really is a growth process, I think, to grow through something like that. I always wished that for my uncle. He was such a dynamic, intelligent, bright, funny, amazing artist, drummer, just a great guy. Yeah. And I feel like he really missed out. He missed out on life by being completely numb.
Yeah.
And being awake is so much more exhilarating than being drunk.
Yeah.
So,
if you can be awake pain-free, which is what any of those programs help you, or therapists help you to do.
But the truth is, pain is life.
Yeah.
Pain is life.
Well, I mean, I guess in constant pain due to trauma that's unresolved.
That's right.
Yeah.
But,
not
the pain,
just your typical...
If you allow it, pain carves the crevice that you can fill with joy.
Right.
But you have to allow it to do that.
Yeah.
Or it just sits there as pain.
Yeah.
So if you let it leak out of that crevice, you can fill the crevice back up with something else better, with joy or fulfillment or purpose or whatever. Resilience with love, with tacos. I don't know.
It's raining tacos.
Tacos would be good about right now. I could eat a taco. But anything you guys want to say to close on addiction? Anything you'd like people to know or think about or reflect upon? I mean, Cathy's just going to go do some heroin. So.
Right.
I was going to go do heroin.
No.
And I think the one thing is really that it's okay. If you're in that place and you want help, then get it. Like, it's not a terrible life sentence that you are addicted. There is a way out. And if you're willing to take that step, if you can, then you should, and people will help you. That's really...
Yeah. I mean, I concur. I think it's not... most of the clients that I've had that have been addicted, when they got to AA, were like, oh my God, this is what was wrong with me.
Right.
And oh my God, now that I know what's wrong with me, I actually have steps I can take, or whatever it is that they choose to help them get sober, a program that actually helps me do something about it. But before, it's like they were asleep and they didn't know what was wrong with them.
Right.
So, now upon finding out what your diagnosis is at the physician, you get the treatment that you're supposed to have to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so it's been more of an eye-opening experience and kind of a light going on than anything else.
Right.
And I guess if I could do anything, I would just wish for people to not feel shame about it.
Amen.
Because it is so rampant. And, the house, I mean, I'll put it to you this way. I go to one of my children attends a very prestigious school, and I was at one of the games, and one of the parents was reeking of vodka. And this disease affects everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody.
Yes.
And I don't care what your economic background is, what your cultural background is. It is an equal opportunity seeker.
No color lines.
No color lines at all.
Nope.
So, don't be fooled into thinking that, you're the only one that has this problem and nobody's going to understand you.
That's the thing.
yeah.
The nobody's going to understand you is a
Right,
lie
right.
that you tell yourself, or your inner self tells yourself, because that's not true.
Right.
There is nothing, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, there is nothing. I can't imagine
you could
anything
experience.
that
Right.
someone can't relate to.
Right.
Now, it may not be your mom that can relate to you, but someone on the planet can relate to you. I mean, I just did a podcast last week, or the one that came out this week was about moms and dads. We did 2 back to back, where I have 2 friends who have the same mom as me,
Right.
pretty much, and the same 2 friends have the same dad,
Right.
which is bizarre.
Yeah.
But that, I think the message that one of the reasons I started this podcast, a couple, was so that I could learn, because I'm super curious and I like discussing things like this because I end up learning from it about myself and about life and about people. And the other thing is, I feel like I have so many life experiences, like what I was talking about with all this drinking and craziness, that other people can relate to and go, that makes me feel not so alone. So everybody who sent emails saying, hey, I'm so glad you did this because now I don't feel alone, thank you for that, because that was part of my purpose, was so that I felt terribly alone. And I also didn't grow up in a very verbally expressive household. So no one said, I'm feeling frustrated because you didn't put away your laundry. That's not how it worked. It was like, go put your fucking laundry away.
Now,
that was,
yeah.
and so I didn't learn how to express my feelings verbally.
Right.
And I think sometimes having someone articulate what you're going through when you don't have the words to articulate it can prompt change. Right? So if someone's listening and they say, I feel that way, but I could never put it into words.
Right.
Now that you have the word for it, that's one of the reasons I read self-help books all the time, is because I was looking for the words for what I was going through that I didn't have. I mean, come on. I grew up in a town of 1,800 people. Well, a lot of words going on there. The words were pretty basic. So, and I don't blame that. That's fine. But my insatiable need to read all this self-help was to give me words for what I was going through. So perhaps someone who's listening to the 3 of us today could have that happen too. Is to go, I didn't understand that this was happening for me.
Right.
Now I understand it. Now I can do something differently.
And interestingly enough, the last step in AA, the 12th step, is after you have had, they say, an awakening from this, and you've completed your 12 steps and you're ready to do it, you go out there and you help somebody else. Maybe it's by speaking in a meeting, and so somebody else hears your experience and connects with you and goes, oh my God, you just told my story. That's part of the program, is to not stop going to meetings. It's for you to keep going there and showing up and showing the newcomer, like, that yes, that still happens. Yes, it's still bad out there.
Right.
Yes, it's, this is how I got sober, regardless of all these problems I had. Oh my God, you had the same problems. Come talk to me after the meeting.
I've been where you are.
It's part of what you do, is you
mentoring.
give away what you've gotten. Yeah.
Sort of mentoring.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I didn't really intend to be a mentor. That's a big word, just like abuse was a big word. But at the same time, that's what I hoped, is that someone would listen and say, oh my God, I also got drunk, parked my car with the keys to the ignition, left the door open, scattered my laundry over the lawn, and found myself in my bed and
half
no
naked
memory
and
how I got there. I also ended up in the drunk tank with my uncle.
Right. That might be a tall order to fill.
and someone drunk came to pick me up. That may be, but not where I'm from. Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk about this, because I think it was a good podcast. I think we talked about a lot of great things. So
covered territory,
and we got some ideas for some upcoming, right? A lot of them. So, but seriously, thank you very much, both of you, for opening yourselves up on this topic. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
happy
doing
to
it.
be here.
Of course. Till next time.